Two experts in ICF.
Yeah.
Decades of experience.
Uh-huh.
One podcast.
Yeah.
Two hosts with a lot to say.
Look, I cannot sit through a struggle. I gotta get up and hustle. I gotta push through the pain, cause really that's how you build muscle.
Welcome to the Build with ICF podcast with your hosts, Trevor Brown and Heather Herring Brown. Yep, they're a package deal. With over 20 years of ICF installation experience, Trevor can throw down some expertise on sales, marketing, and training. On the other side of the table sits Heather, aka the girl boss, and she's earned the title as the owner of an award-winning ICF construction company, a drafting and design company specializing in ICF. And the numbers? With a master's in accounting, she does that too. Sleeves up, boots on. This is the Build with ICF podcast.
I don't want nothing for free. I'm here to work. Been through the dirt. I've been through the dirt, yeah.
Oh, welcome. This is exciting.
Dude, we're doing it first again. Holy cow, that was loud. All right, we're going to rework it through. So as you may be able to tell, and we kind of set this up on previous podcasts, we are at the World of Concrete 2024, recording live from the sales floor in the North Hall.
Yeah.
Pretty exciting. Something we've never done. Every episode we seem to do something new and something exciting. So we are going to go ahead and we're going to have a little bit, you're going to see some audio challenges on this one. So I'm just going to say to everybody, we're live on the floor.
It's going to be fine.
It's a booming place. It's exciting. Everything's going on. So one of the things that we've been asked about over and over and over again has been fiberglass rebar. It's something that we get sent in on our, everybody, I'll say our listeners, we're very new. And so far our listeners have been awesome about getting us on info at buildwithicf.com, sending in things on our DMs. And so we're just quickly seeing what the pulse of what everyone wants to learn about is.
Yep.
And one of those things that we just get hammered about is fiberglass rebar.
Yeah.
So lucky for us, we're standing on the sales floor here. We're with Chad Hiller, who we've given Chad several shout outs already as the plumb wall guy. He has multiple hats, big head, so he can wear lots of hats. He's wearing his MST Bar hat today. And then we've got David Wolf, the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for MST Bar here as well, because he's going to make sure that Chad doesn't lie to us about stuff and
he is.
Actually knows what he's talking about. So thank you guys for coming. I'm going to let you either way figure out which guy goes first, but we've got both of you. Give a little intro of who you are, how you got into this, and kind of we'll start asking through some questions about the MST product.
Sure. Thanks, Trevor. So our goal is to have MST Bar inserted into the ICF industry as a normal reinforcement product on your everyday ICF job site. MST Bar, when we compare it to steel, the obvious one is it's a quarter of the weight. I have builders, Kelly Lockington behind us in the video. That's a 30-year ICF builder that no longer uses steel. They only use MST Bar in their ICF buildings. And the simple answer for Kelly is, hey, my guys love it, and I cut my labor in half. Yeah. Interesting story from that job site. The MST Bar was unloaded in the wrong spot on the job site. Well, if that happens with steel, we need to get a piece of equipment or a guy with a couple hours to move it.
Right. And he's going to be pissed. He's not going to be happy about it.
In that case, Kelly said, I grabbed a 2x4, I rolled it out of the way, and we moved on with the day. So that's one of those things you see when you're on site.
Right.
But back to the differences is...
I'm going to back you up a little bit because I do want to stop and give you a little bio. So give us, how did you get involved? Like like everybody knows you as the plumb wall guy, right? Like that's how I know you. That's how everybody we talk to knows you. How did MST Bar come into it for you? And then I'll kind of let David talk about a little bit about how he's brought that product in.
We got involved with MST Bar because of our bracing business. Mm-hmm. Our bracing business allows us to service the entire ICF industry without having an eye towards a specific brand. So our brace, as you know, it services any type of ICF block. Well, MST Fiberglass Rebar is no different. It services every type of ICF block. So we've built those relationships over 20 years with the brace. Right. And now
people already knew you had the relationships. It just fit.
So what we've seen, as you know, a successful ICF distribution model is, hey, I've got ICF block inventoried. I have an ICF expert on site that can bring a new builder into the industry. I probably have rental bracing. Well, this is the next obvious addition to that one-stop shop if I'm providing ICF block to contractors, a natural add-on is MST Fiberglass Rebar.
That's perfect. Perfect. Trying to segue into David and tell us let's start back with how'd you get into this? Like where'd you come from?
Awesome.
I don't need to know clear back to like birth and things like that. Yeah. I don't want to know about your parents and them dating. I don't need to know that. I'm sure they're great people. I just don't want to know the whole backstory. But
It's only a 30-minute show.
So basically, I'm David Wolf. I've been in the fiberglass industry for a little over 21 to almost 22 years now. Basically been with MST since 2018, so about 5 years with MST Rebar. So basically, I have a long history in the fiberglass industry, and it's basically an industry that provides a lot of benefits to a lot of industries. ICF is an unbelievably good fit for fiberglass and fiberglass rebar, but it works in a lot of other industries as well.
Yeah, and we've talked about it. The one thing I've seen is like I think you guys are getting a huge amount of traction in like government roads, and
absolutely
like, that's where we see it out west. Anyways, I see truckloads of fiberglass rebar being dropped off where they're building bridges and things like that.
Yeah,
so
like DOTs all across the U.S. and also ministries of transport in Canada and also around the world. I'm on my way to Australia next week. For doing bridge works as well there as well.
Well, and what that does for us in the ICF industry is like, I mean, as we know, we talked about before we got on microphone, we run into problems with people not accepting it in certain areas and stuff, or even just, Jerry, the inspector, coming on and saying, I don't know what it is, I'm not going to approve it. Where we're seeing is I get calls from guys, their other ICF servers go, hey dude, I just saw him drop a whole load of, it's right there on the interstate. That guy starts seeing that. The more they start seeing it, the more it's being accepted,
exactly.
And known.
So the key to the acceptance and the key to the building inspectors is all communication. So I'm gonna shout out Chad here, because Chad is incredibly successful for us at selling MST Rebar into ICF because he's a tireless communicator and communicates extremely well to all the parties involved. So the inspectors, we work with the building officials associations across all the provinces in Canada, and we're working with all the same inspector associations or building officials associations across the states as well. And the key to it's basically there's some technical information, but the main thing is communicating what this is, how it works, and then once they know that, I've probably myself personally talked to 400 or 500 building officials, and they're all, once they know what it is, they all say, great. No problem.
What are you guys seeing? Just, I mean, because you're looking at it here from, you've got the 30,000, David's got the 30,000 view, you're at the 10,000 foot view. We're probably at the 3 foot view. What you were seeing as we work it down. And that's exactly what we need, is that education coming from the 30,000 foot, but then it's got to come down to Chad. What are you guys doing? And what have you seen? I know you work a lot with Marty and different people. I mean, we've been in contact on projects we have. How are you guys helping all of us at the 3 foot level get it down from 30 to 3?
Yeah, one of the main goals is to have that clear message to the builder. How do I change from my current reinforcement, which is likely steel, to MST bar? And the way we want to do that is to use the existing data that the ICFMA has created and compare, well, how do I do this in steel? Here it is. It's existed for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
How do I do that in MST bar? Well, the answer is, oftentimes it's a 1-to-1 swap. And I think there are times where it can be a better than 1-to-1 swap because of the increased strength that MST bar offers. But the clear message is, remember how you did it last time with your steel? You could do that exact same thing this time. Don't miss a beat. And we're providing documentation for guys to rely on that. If it's a large project, we can engage engineering. So we just had it's actually an Anvik builder doing condominiums in Huntsville, Ontario. They have never used MST bar. They've considered it. We've offered to them a couple times. We have a great relationship with them. The next project they're going to do is already designed in steel. So we're going to bring that in and we're going to analyze it with our engineering, and we're going to provide a conversion suggestion to them. No obligation, no cost. Here is what it would look like to do your condo project, which I believe is a 4-story ICF project in Huntsville, Ontario. We suggested to them, we'll bring your drawing in, we'll analyze it, we'll convert it to MST bar. Perhaps it'll be 1-to-1 or better. You'll have that data. We'll bring the engineer of record in. He can have all his questions answered. And that's one way we can engage on those larger projects. And we've done that successfully many times. As recently as this week, couple weeks ago, we converted an ICF gun range in Ohio. And the obvious question is costs, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. Yeah, go
On
for
this
it.
ICF gun range, we did that exact process. We happened to know the builder. He needed some bracing. We got talking about the project. We said, wow, that'd be a great conversion to MST bar. It had ICF deck as well as ICF walls. Fast forward through the analyze process, convert it to MST bar, engage the engineer of record who hadn't ever considered MST bar before. 10 minutes into that conversation where we connected our engineer with Steve, that engineer of record, he was asking about how do I design this into my next building.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing with the conversions that we do, we do have actually stamped drawings, so stamped by professional engineer. So there's actually we take full responsibility for the design and for the showing whether it's 1-to-1 or better than 1-to-1, or in some cases if it's a high, slightly different than 1-to-1. But we do provide stamped drawings. And the other thing in the U.S., we also have International Code Council certification. We have an ESSR number for MST bar, and that will help a lot with building inspector acceptance in the U.S.
Well, and I think it's going to help a lot with the engineers in the U.S. as well, because they're like taking a serious look at it. Where
Exactly.
When we didn't have those numbers and those certificates, it made it difficult for them. That they were afraid of it. I think
Like the same thing with engineers. I personally have probably done 300 or 400 now engineering lunch and learn presentations, because as I mentioned initially, the key to this industry is all about communication. And that's why literally Plumwall, G2, Chad has done such a good job, is communication about all the not the benefits, also, everything about the product. People understand. Once people understand it, they say, okay, great.
Okay. Well, so you brought up the benefits, and we're I think we might deviate a little bit from our 3 questions because we're kind of covering them in a little bit.
Like I said, there's so much good information here that
Yes.
you and I are both coming up with different things, because he triggered something I wanted to say real quick before we go on to something else here a little bit. Is the biggest thing we hear in the ICF world is that people are concerned about I don't think I can do it. And I think what I'm hearing from you guys is we have a ton of support. And I think that resonates with everything that we do on this podcast. Is we're telling people, like, they go, I don't know what block to choose. Well, here, let us on this podcast bring the people on to help you make that choice, and let you know you're not alone. There's people to help that choice. We have people say, I don't know how I'm going to keep my wall straight. Well, hold on. We'll lead you over to Plumwall, and and they can tell you how to, and I think that's what I'm hearing with the MST bar from both of you guys is we're here you guys are here to help.
Absolutely.
And so, like, when we're sitting here looking at us as builders or DIY customers listening to this podcast, I think what I really hear you guys saying is we're doing the things to help. You have all the information and you're willing to share that information.
Absolutely. The key is actually getting that information to the people.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, the benefits, Chad talked about the weight. The tensile strength is 3 times that of steel.
Right.
The bond strength. One of the key things is the bond strength of concrete is also 3 times that of steel as well. So that helps with the going around 90-degree corners. You can do things with MST rebar that you can't do with steel because of the bond strength of concrete.
Yeah, you were like, before we got on microphones, you were talking about this one job, and you had, what were the lengths that you were saying that you guys were doing? 43, 44
that
foot?
specific job was 43-foot lengths of 35-millimeter bar.
You could not personally, I couldn't, I don't think a lot of men could personally handle that length in steel. So the fact that you can do that as a, normal person with the fiberglass is huge.
Yeah, and back to David touched briefly on the corners, the advantage and the adhesion strength of MST bar being 3 times that of steel allows us to do different things than we could traditionally do. I give the example of one of the guys that works at Plumwall. He was building his own ICF house on the weekends, 26-year-old guy. So you get the picture of who we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Well, he thought it was so funny. I call it the good, better, best. Good, I have 20-foot lengths of rebar going through my walls, and on my corners, I happen to have some leftover steel. It's an important point that you can use those 90-degree corners in steel, tie it to MST bar. There's no adverse effect. That's fine. That's good. Better,
Yeah.
what you're touching there is a 90-degree MST bar corner.
Oh, yeah.
That's better. If we're going MST bar, let's go all the way.
Right.
It's the same overlap, 40 times the diameter applies. Yep. You install it identical to the steel rebar corner. However, best, going back to the adhesion strength that David mentioned, is we don't actually need a steel 90-degree corner. We don't actually need this MST bar corner. We can do something called the 45-degree corner.
Okay. Yeah.
The guy building his house on the weekends thought it was just the best thing because this is a quote from him. Well, it's not a free way to do a corner, but it's darn close to free because he took a scrap piece of MST bar, lays it out of 45, and this is not a made up thing. This is an engineer stamp.
I've seen it. I've seen it on. Yeah, I've seen it on the the web.
Lays as long as you have a 6-inch core, which most ICF is,
Right.
or greater, this applies.
Yep.
So he's now laid a 45 across that corner instead of the overlapping corner. We're saving $4 or $5 a corner. He did the math and he was pretty excited about the savings. That's something you can't do with steel, and you can only do with MST bar because of the rib. It's a ribbed,
the adhesion or whatever.
It's a ribbed fiberglass rebar, not sand coated, not smooth. It's the rib and the makeup of the bar that allow for that 3 times stronger adhesion strength.
Well, now let me ask you this as an installer, because you have samples here that you're holding on to. So are they actually the different size bars? Are they different colors this?
The colors actually are basically for flat work and structural. So the blue color is only for flat work. And the reason, what looks like a green color is just a natural non-pigmented color. The green color is suited for structural use only.
Okay.
So basically what the purpose of this is to ensure that there's no blue color rebar going into a wall.
Oh, okay. That's even better, which I mean, all this stuff is like kind of foolproof stuff. And
That's our intention.
You're trying to do it because there's a lot of guys out there like me that aren't super sharp. We can lift things. we can build things.
You can back up trailers.
I can back up a trailer like a Banshee. Not the smartest guy. So there's a reason why we do this.
I was asking because a lot of our jobs have 4 and 5 bar when you're talking about steel in the walls. And we have, 5 bar over the windows. And a lot of times you'll get a newer installer that's out there doing your window lintels, and they mistakenly grab the wrong bar and make the whole window lintel out of it. So that's why I was asking. But that makes total sense with the blue bar being for flat work.
The other thing with that is also for the numbering system and a lot of other information about the bar, we actually have an inkjet printer that prints all of the bar information on every piece of bar
Which you can see on that versus on steel. It's so hard to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think this is a conversation that we had before we started recording with another customer that came in, and we said we had talking about cost. Like he's like, well, building with ICF cost me more money, and if you've listened to all the episodes, I call BS on that, and that's not true. That's not true. And one of the ways we do it is, I think if you're not doing it that way, you're probably being wasteful. So like I really harp on like, hey, we go through the piles of ICF, we cut down 6-inch pieces and we put them in the wall, we reuse them, something you can't do with wood. So similar when you guys say, well, you could take these small pieces and do a 45 corner, which I've seen, it's not complicated, and it's taken out of the junk pile that would have gone in the dumpster. You're saving the money.
And I would add on to the end of that we actually created a stronger corner than a standard 90.
Right.
Think triangle.
Even better. So you're saving money and making a better product. But that's great.
On the building official side, I've talked with hundreds of building officials about that corner and have never had anybody say have any issues with it.
That's awesome.
Oh.
Okay.
So I say we go. Let's get to our corners. We're talking corners. I told you I wasn't smart, and then we're talking corners. I say corners, but let's get our questions. We got the 3 questions that we ask everybody the same question.
Yep.
And we'll let you guys. You guys can both. We got time if you guys want to do like each of you to kind of have your own take on it, or you guys can combine for a question, whatever you want to do.
Okay. So question number 1. It's super simple. I mean, we've already been talking about it, but a little bit more. Why fiberglass rebar? Why MST bar?
I would talk about it from my perspective, which is installing it into an existing ICF distribution location. I used Isomatrix as the example. There are many more. And also the contractor direct. It's the labor savings. It's the ease of use. It's the ease of cutting. I always say it's too easy to ship, too easy to handle, too easy to cut, too easy to install, that when a contractor tries MST bar, they typically adopt it as the norm because of those very simple reasons. And from them providing it to the end consumer, we have a premium reinforcement product that will never rust. It's going to outlast the concrete that it's reinforcing. So even that ICF customer that I would say is a great candidate, they're already forward thinking. If they're building ICF, I would suggest it's a natural fit for a forward thinking contractor and a forward thinking consumer.
Okay. Before we move over to Dave and let him answer that question, I want to ask you something on that, because when we're cutting steel, on a job site. There's sparks. We're using an angle grinder, or we've got the by hand rebar bender cutter. That's everybody always laughs when I'm using it because they think I can't do it. But like,
it is comical sometimes.
What do you use to cut this?
If we're doing we will provide custom fabricated lengths. If we're cutting it, first of all, we'll cut an entire sub bundle of 25 all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll use a diamond blade rotary saw. It really cuts quite slick.
Yeah.
That's what we
use. It doesn't put
keep
off any spark or anything. It's just,
there's,
spark? No,
there's a dust that would be
fire.
Similar to sawdust.
Okay.
It's completely inert, the dust as well.
Right. And it's also because like one thing we do is we see all the time, we end up cutting rebar in the wall for some reason or another, and it burns, we burn holes in the ICF, right? So like that's another thing that'd be kind of nice is it's not throwing sparks everywhere.
And we work in a lot of remote areas, job sites where we're a long ways from a fire station or running water sometimes when we're, up there on our job sites. They're drilling the well while we're stacking block. And so it's important not to, start a fire when we're cutting rebar. So that's what I was asking.
On the one thing on the fire side, that comes up that question comes up in a lot of times with MST bar or any fiberglass rebar, the question about fire resistance. And the answer to that question is there's an ASTM E119 test that tests basically a slab with minimal cover, fire underneath and load on top. And a slab with steel rebar will last a maximum of 2 hours in that test. And MST rebar or MST bar in that test will last well over 3 hours. So it's actually 50% better in fire resistance than steel rebar.
That's awesome. And I mean, that makes all the sense and that's funny because I've actually was reading on why they have to, this happened in our town where they had to replace an overpass because a truck hit the overpass and caught on fire. And the heat was so high that it messed with, and I was like, how does it mess with the concrete to the point that you have to replace that? And they're like, it's actually the rebar is some of the problem. It weakened the rebar within there, and therefore they have to tear the thing down and replace it. So that's really interesting.
So it's interesting. The explanation for it is probably longer than we have time for today. Right. But basically, it's all to do with the glass, the strength of the glass, and also the bond strength has an enormous effect.
Right. Okay, so what do you, and you can give us a little bit more of broader spectrum, about why fiberglass, because we're talking ICF obviously, but I do want to give you the respect of all the knowledge you have of the other stuff. Why MST bar and why for all the industries?
Sure, no problem. Well, basically, Chad talked about a lot of the benefits. It's 3 times higher tensile strength than steel. It's a quarter of the weight of steel. Most importantly, is it's very close to the same cost as black steel. So that actually has a huge benefit. The other thing is it's a very green product. The energy carbon footprint or carbon used to make 1 20-foot bar of steel or 1 20-foot bar of MST is actually 80% less than steel.
Wow.
That because it's a quarter of the weight, the transportation energy to use to transport anywhere is also a quarter by definition. Any craneage costs are also lower. So it's definitely a green product.
That's crazy.
And as Chad mentioned, it'll last virtually forever as well.
Yeah. We're looking at a picture of a truck, and it's like loaded like a lumber truck. Like usually you see rebar going down the road, and there's like there's a couple strands on the back of a flatbed, and sitting here on a 48-foot flatbed right now, and it's stacked as high as the cab of the truck. So that makes it awesome.
That makes it. It's good for trucking, but also good for we ship internationally as well. So you could fit a lot of the same thing in a shipping container. You can ship this anywhere in the world for relatively low cost.
Yep. So go ahead and we'll go to the next question.
So our next question, a memorable moment with MST Bar in your business.
Well, for me, though, the most memorable was actually at a site where we did a video shoot for Chad in London, Ontario, and watching I don't know how old this kid was.
17, carrying a 25 bar bundle on his shoulder, walking around. We use that video everywhere we go. It was quite hilarious. That actually speaks to the neatness and the tidy method that it ships in. So for example, that's a picture of him right there. That's the 17-year-old. So actually interesting, that's a 17-year-old. His name's Ben. And the only guy that touches bracing and MST bar is 17-year-old Ben. So he sets up the bracing, he cleans up, then he cuts the rebar, the MST bar, sets it, cleans up, and then the pour happens and he assists, and then he tears down the bracing. So he is the bracing and MST bar setter, they call him.
Wow.
And what he's carrying there is what is called a sub bundle. So that's 10 millimeter bar he's got, or number 3.
Okay.
Comes in a bundle of 500 pieces, and it's tied together. When you cut those ties open, it doesn't fall apart in a mess. It comes apart in these sub bundles of 25, which now you carry across the site 25 at a time.
See, that's what our guys see. That's exactly why our guys are losing their mind about wanting to use fiberglass rebar, because that's what they think about.
And me too, because, I'll get onto a job site and I get up there to start helping them drop in the verts, because, the inspector's on his way and we're dropping them in. And it's all I can do to, we do 16, 18 foot tall walls.
Absolutely.
Number 4 bar, that's heavy. And,
it's awkward. You're just winging a lot of weight up over your head.
Yeah. And so this is totally,
so what that translates into in dollars and cents, though, is typically the installation time or the installation cost is typically about half that of steel.
It's going to save a lot of chiropractor appointments and massages afterwards because your back hurts so bad.
You mentioned the 20-foot wall. On that video that David mentioned, it was actually the video was shot on that same job site. There was a worker placing a full 20, and an MST bar is a full 20 feet. It's not a couple inches short. It's full 20 feet. A worker was setting a 20-foot length of number 5 bar down an ICF gable end by himself. It's captured on that video. It's in our promo video. It's behind you there.
Yeah.
But when you see that, you would never, most normal people wouldn't, maybe Trevor would, but nobody else would try to do that with a 20-foot length of number 5 steel.
I do it left-handed, but yeah.
and then I would never hear the end of it.
One other thing about the length is 20 feet is a standard length, but we can make the bar in any length that's required. So if you want a 37.5 foot you talked about, or a 9 foot 2 inch bar, we can set our machines to cut exactly that length. So there's no wastage as well.
Yeah, so you're limited only by the freight, by the trucking. So like a 53-foot trailer, that's your limit.
Yeah.
So this, I'm going to give a little plug for Innovative Draft and Design, because with the drafting company, you guys draw plans to the exact measurements of the block that people choose. So that's why we always say it's important to choose your block before we do your plans. Think about that, where we could actually order the MST bar in packages that would fit to speed up the especially if you're a developer, somebody that's building multiple units. I mean, you could just order, just like a lumber pack, you order your rebar pack basically that way. You order your
ICF pack, so you drop off their ICF, their alignment, their MST bar. We drop everything there from the very beginning.
I'm starting to see the Chad's head now. It's starting to all make sense. Look, he's not as crazy as we thought he was. It's all starting to come together.
Let's not go overboard.
For bigger jobs, the custom fabrication is a fit. But I think if we're going to talk about what 80% of the market is, it's ICF residential.
Yeah.
I think it's 20-foot bars kept in inventory at the ICF distributor's location.
Yeah.
Because then we drive handling costs down.
Well, and you can, like you said, when I'm sitting here thinking what we actually do, we actually prep a lot of our materials and stuff to go out to the job site, whether window bucks and different things. And so I could see us, and we pre-cut rebar at the in our shop, especially if it's cold or warm or whatever, in the nice conditions. The guys would much rather sit in there and get everything done.
If it's cold outside, they want to be in the shop. If it's hot outside, they want to be handling steel rebar in the shop because that'll burn you.
So we'll bring the flatbed in and we'll actually cut in there. So I could see where you're talking about bundles of 25 with one cut. It's, if this wall's got 12 courses in it and you need this, you cut a bundle. That's what I'm sitting there thinking, how this could save time for us as a builder.
You mentioned heating up.
Yeah.
That's a nice thing about MST bar. It doesn't conduct electricity. It's not thermal conductive. So it's sitting out in the sun in Arizona. You don't pick it up and burn your neck.
Yeah.
Or it's in Kingston, Ontario. It doesn't freeze.
Exactly.
It's
perfect. All right. Third and final question.
I got to get the iPad open again.
It is a remember here.
Okay.
What are you excited about going into the future with the industry? And trying it back into the ICF industry. I may give a longer leash to David. I'll let you go a little outside the ICF industry. But what is something that you're excited about looking forward? I mean, what's the next thing?
I have said before that just from my perspective, there's so many parallels between ICF 20 years ago and MST bar. It's a new idea. It's guys that are set in their ways. In that case, stick frame versus ICF.
Right.
Now we have steel in comparison to MST bar. I'm excited when a company like is on the video behind us uses it, is successful with it, and they adopt it as the norm. And they're telling me, wow, we are saving a ton of labor on this. So we're providing them a premium product at the same or oftentimes better price than steel, and they're banking labor savings. And we have a happy end customer that says, wow, I have a premium reinforcement that it's not sitting here rusting on the job site. I'm very happy with this as a complete package.
Yeah.
So it's a really good comparison.
Yeah. It's funny because we rode the tram over, we always ride the tram back and forth for the monorail. The monorail. That's what it is. The monorail. We ride that every day back and forth to the show. And we were sitting on there and I had the podcast equipment with me, and the guy sitting there asked, he's like, oh, you going to the SHOT Show? Because we got the SHOT Show going on at the same time. He's, I thought I had a gun case. And I go, no, it's for my podcast equipment. We have a podcast by them, blah, blah, blah. So we start talking. And one of the first things he asked me about was fiberglass rebar.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was from Oregon, and they were really pushing fiberglass out there. And this, just think of the randomness. We're in Vegas going, on a monorail. I sit in one car of the monorail, sit down. The guy sitting right next to me says, what we do? What about this fiberglass rebar? He's like, are you guys seeing it? And that is an honest to God story. That just happened within minutes. Yeah.
I'm off topic here, but I go back 10 years. I go back 15 years, and a lot of builders would say, I don't know what ICF is.
Right.
But same thing. I'm in a coffee lineup. And he says, hey, why are you here? And I mentioned why we're here. And he's like, oh, yeah, my neighbor just built an ICF house.
Right. So there's so much more of that. Okay. Well, and I told him, I was giving him the analogy. I said, here's the thing I'm old, right? You can tell by the gray beard, but I said, I remember working, my dad managed a lumberyard. And I remember being in the lumberyard when they brought I-joists in. Like everybody built their floor joists out of 2x10s, right? Everybody built their, and I remember a couple old guys. There's an old builder named Art Hickey, and I think if he was still alive, he'd be 400 right now because he was 180 when I was a kid. And he came in, he goes, he grabbed me by the neck, and he goes, hey, you ever see me loading that shit in my truck? Just shoot me dead. I'll never use that crap ever. Look at that cheesy crap, right? And it was pretty much every builder out there was like, I'll never put that in my house. Look how cheesy that I-joist is, right? Everybody now, most people don't even know that they didn't build floor joists without an I-joist. Now, copper pipe in walls. When PEX pipe came out, most plumbers said, I'll never use that. There's no way you'll ever put that plastic crap in my wall. Guess what? That's all that's out there. And I told him, I said, I honestly feel like fiberglass rebar is going to get there. Like it's going to be where we're going to tell people at some point, we used to use steel rebar.
Really,
and they're like,
heavy.
what? Yeah, it was so heavy, dude. My hands would hurt. And they're like, I can't believe that. Like, I think it's going to get there, right? I think we're right at that point. We're at that precipice.
That's exactly it. I mean, it's really we use the term changing the world right now. And I know it's a little bit, it's still rebar. It's not. But basically, it's an incredibly exciting business to be in. For me, it's only been 5 years in this industry, but it's unbelievable. I've never seen an industry grow like this. It's an exponential growth it's really unprecedented. Literally any industry, we're tripling in sales every year.
Yeah.
And we expect it to, we're basically tripling our capacity and planning the tripling of capacity every year for the foreseeable future. So right now, for example, we've gone through 2 triplings in our Toronto plant. We have a small plant in Buffalo, New York, and in the U.S. Our next big expansion will be in the States. We're just deciding on what state right now. The next expansion after that is actually going to be in Saudi Arabia. Some of the largest infrastructure projects in the world, including in the U.S., is by far in Saudi Arabia. They have close to $10 trillion worth of infrastructure.
Is that all? That's more than I make in a year.
And they're all specifying fiberglass GFRP rebar. So it's the growth potential is incredible. For ICF, ICF is a natural industry. Basically, fiberglass rebar could be used in all industries. And there's certain industries where there's a huge benefit. And there's other areas where there's always a benefit, but it's maybe not quite as much as ICF is. So we're going through the process, and it's an incredible communication process, mainly with the engineering community around the world. Mainly in the States. The market by far is the biggest right now, at least in the States. But going through basically the communication, really with engineers, because the overall construction industry is quite slow to change. I think, as you mentioned, and the engineering community is. I can say this because I'm an engineer as well. But it's a very difficult to change. And engineers, it's much easier to do exactly what you've done for the last 30 years than to do something different, even if there's benefits. So
I tell people all the time, I go, I've spent many, many, many more than I want to even think about shows talking to engineers. And I swear to God, I think their job is just to try to figure out ways to make your product fail sometimes. You know, like,
sometimes.
They're just trying to break it. You know, like, I mean, I've stood in booths with people and they're like, okay, but what if you're having an earthquake and a tornado hits and then a tsunami? And I'm like, oh, that's never going to happen. But, you know, I'm like, you got way too much imagination going on there. But no, that's great. And I agree with you guys. Great. I think this is exactly what everybody's been asking for. So it couldn't have been better.
Well, let me ask
exciting.
You.
Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no, I was going to say I know we're at World of Concrete right now. The show's ending tomorrow. And so I know you said you're going to be at the Builder Show coming up in Vegas, the end of February.
Yeah.
Where is your booth at? Where are you going to be? You don't know where it's at?
He's like somewhere here.
It's going to be in Central Hall because he's going to be in an ICF booth.
You got to check the records on that one. I'm not sure.
Here's what we'll do. So I'll put it in the show notes. So it will be in the show notes. So check it out. You guys listen to this. Check it out in the show notes. I will post where they're going to be so you can check it out. But exactly what we wanted to come out of this episode. I mean, this was legitimately what everybody was asking for this information. So thank you guys both for coming on.
Thank you very much.
It's great, man. And I honestly think we're going to probably have a follow-up episode to this as things go. I mean, we talked a little bit off of Mike that we were going to probably be seeing different approvals and things as they come, right? So I think it's going to be important for us. I mean, us as the podcast hosts of this, I want to continue to update people on what's going on in the industry as well. So I'm hoping this is our first of several episodes that we'll do with you guys, and I appreciate your guys' time. I know we pulled you away from sales here.
No, if there's anything better
to
than
get you to stand in the
bit.
booth, but I think it's huge, and like I said, super exciting to have it on the floor of the World of Concrete, and it's just a fun episode to do.
And Chad, for people to reach out to you after, give us your contact info.
You can always get a hold of us, as you know, at Plumwall.
Mm-hmm.
But our MST Bar focus company that we've created, just to put a different hat on, when we focus on MST Bar, it's called G2 Building Products, G like golf, G2 Building Products, Inc. And we have a website set up that focuses on MST Bar in the ICF industry, just so we can talk about MST Bar specifically.
We'll link everything to that too as well. I'll put your links on that in the show notes. I'm going to link David up in this. Are we okay to do that? You want people to get hold of you?
No problem.
Cool. I'll put your personal cell number. If you guys get tanked up on a weekend night, feel free to send him text messages. It's awesome. He loves that. It's a big thing. It's his hobby. He loves that. I don't know. I think anything else here?
No, the only thing is, reach out to us on our socials. Keep hitting us up with your questions at Build with ICF, info at buildwithicf.com. We love the questions. That's, we've been walking around the show.
I apologize already because I'm already getting behind on some of the, I honestly, I love all you guys for reaching out because I did not expect this kind of the amount of feedback we're getting. So my weekends are pretty full with answering emails. So I apologize. A couple people got answers on Monday and Tuesday because I was fighting my way through the emails, but please keep hitting us up. I really, if we have to, we'll hire somebody to start answering emails if we need to. We're having such great success with this podcast, and it's all because of the listeners and everybody that follows us. Obviously our socials at Build with ICF on all the socials. And then as Heather said, info at buildwithicf.com. So please let us know what we can do. You asked for MST Rebar. You wanted to hear about it. You got it. Keep asking us. We're going to bring in on the next podcast. We're going to switch hats, and Chad's going to have to talk about Plumwall. So tune into the next podcast, and we're going to talk about Plumwall with that.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks.